was new to him, and acknowledged that without using mana, he was no longer a match for Karen now, lamenting how much strength the young man had gained in just 1 year. Hans then told Karen that he would likely be sent on a mission soon. Hans revealed that Sir Zeras would be the one to decide the mission's timing because Hello was currently in the capital, and he speculated that their destination would be the Celestial Dome region in the west of the duchy where demon appearances were increasing. Nearby, Leo was training anxiously, thinking that he didn't want to go on the same mission with Karen, but at the same time he hoped to make his parents happy if he did well. Back in the present, Bali revealed to Heinrich that the reason for his summons was not just Karen's letter. Bali gave him a small pouch, explaining that their territory's gate inspectors found it in a merchant's cart coming from the barony of Balos. Bali confirmed it was a drug called cocaine and asked him to investigate the matter of the barony of Balos, starting from the Blue Sea Castle. At the train station, someone got off the train wondering if this was the Blue Sea Castle. That night, Karen was wandering the castle grounds, after having snuck in and stolen a bottle of liquor from Xerxes' collection, commenting to himself that messing with Xerxes' collection was always exciting. As he was enjoying his drink, he heard a visitor asking the guard for Duke Listing on an urgent matter. The guard confirmed that the Duke was in the capital and that Knight Commander Xerxes was in charge. Karen interjected in the conversation, and when the guard recognized him, the visitor introduced himself as the young Baron Rohan Belos. Rohan recognized Karen from the rumors he had heard about him. Although Rohan's aide suggested going to the Knight Commander, Karen insisted that he would be the one to listen to his story, arguing that it was a matter of courtesy for a noble from their side to receive a visitor who had come in person on an urgent matter. Karen ordered the guard to deliver a separate message to Xerxes. Karen's political judgment impressed Rohan, though Rohan was concerned to see a boy holding a bottle of liquor. He then invited Rohan to follow. In a private room, Karen summarized Rohan's problem, the presence of a group of bandits in the eastern mountains of his barony. Rohan confirmed this, adding that these bandits were spreading drugs and kidnapping people to sell as slaves. Rohan explained with regret that his barony was poor and militarily weak, and that his father's attempt to confront the bandits had failed, and resulted in him being injured and bedridden. Karen slammed the liquor bottle on the table in anger, declaring that tearing these scoundrels to pieces was not enough punishment for them. But he pointed out a puzzling point, wondering how a mere group of bandits could be strong enough to fight a regular army. Rohan replied that they suspected these bandits might actually be deserters from the Southern Kingdom's army, which was currently at war. Karen analyzed the situation, concluding that after the evil emperor's abdication, the imperial army had focused its reduced resources on the war in the south, creating a security vacuum in the north. That allowed deserters to become bandits. Rohan agreed that this theory seemed the most plausible. Karen then offered Rohan a drink, explaining that the barony of Balos was adjacent to the fiefdom where his father resided, making this a personal matter for him as well, and he expressed his desire to help personally. Rohan felt grateful for this gesture, though he wondered to himself about the appropriateness of accepting a drink offered by a child. Karen cheerfully admitted that the drink was stolen from Sir Xerxes' collection and asked Rohan to keep it a secret between them. Rohan was shocked to hear the name of the famous Knight Commander. At that very moment, Xerxes entered the room and asked Karen if they hadn't agreed that he wouldn't touch his drink. Rohan got flustered and spilled his drink, but Xerxes reassured him. Xerxes addressed Rohan, confirming he had heard of his grave concern about the bandits, which Rohan confirmed was the reason he came to ask for help. As Xerxes was about to reply, Karen interrupted him. Xerxes turned to him, scolding him for drinking at his age, and took his drink away. Xerxes apologized to the young baron for the scene, then reassured him that Blue Sea Castle would not stand idly by while an old partner suffered, and told him they were planning to organize and dispatch troops soon. Karen volunteered to go on the mission, but Xerxes immediately refused, arguing that the enemy was a trained group and might have unknown skilled fighters. Rohan was surprised by Karen's seriousness in wanting to help. Xerxes objected, knowing that real combat was different from training. Karen argued that being overprotective was not good, but Xerxes insisted he would rather send him to face a clear danger in the west than an ambiguous one. At that, Karen smiled slyly and asked him what if he made him an offer he couldn't refuse. In a later scene at the train station, Leo was shocked at being forced to go on the mission, while Karen enthusiastically wrapped an arm around him, delighted that it was their first mission. Xerxes, who was watching the scene, realized he had been tricked and that Karen had used Lady Sabina as leverage. Xerxes thought that perhaps this was for the best, as a reliable guardian would accompany them. Xerxes realized that his agreement to the condition of Lord Leo going implicitly meant his satisfaction with the results of their training. Baron Rohan was also present to see them off, and he was very worried about the safety of the Duke's grandsons and his family's responsibility if any harm came to them. Xerxes tried to reassure him, and assured him that there was no need for him to worry, as he explained that with Sabina present, no harm would ever come to the boys. But Sabina interrupted him with a shocking statement. declaring that she did not intend to intervene unless the boys were in danger of death. This statement terrified Rohan and Leo. Zeres commented on her usual audacity, and Sabina hinted that there was a reason preventing her from standing on the front lines, something Zeres seemed to understand and accept. At the train station, Sabina noticed Leo trembling, so she addressed him, saying she understood his fear, but she urged him to consider this mission an opportunity to prove how serious he was about his training over the past 3 years, and a chance to gain recognition as a member of the Blue Wolves. Karen interjected with his sarcastic style, wondering if Leo always needed someone to push him from behind. Leo responded angrily, but Karen's words awakened his resolve, and he realized it was time to prove himself. The magic train departed from Blue Sea Castle, heading to the barony of Belos. As the train moved away, Karen thought to himself that he hadn't expected this moment to come so quickly. On the train, Sabina explained to Baron Rohan why she couldn't appear on the front lines. Her presence at Blue Sea Castle was a secret, and if she were discovered, the bandits would disappear without a trace. However, Rohan remained concerned about sending only 2 children on this mission, as he noticed Karen showed no signs of tension, while Leo seemed extremely anxious. Meanwhile, Leo was remembering his mother's scolding. She had asked him how he could get close to Karen after the humiliation he suffered 3 years ago, which had stained his father's honor, assuring him that Karen was his rival, not his friend. When Leo remained silent, she called him a weak boy. Finally, Leo responded to his mother, explaining that Karen was not his rival. He explained the huge gap in talent between them, as Karen had reached the 4-star level at the age of 13, while he had only reached the 3-star level at the age of 15. Leo asserted that Karen was not his rival, but his goal that pushed him to work hard and move forward. His mother concluded their conversation by telling him that he only sees the trees, the competition, not the forest, the bigger picture. Back on the train, Sabina was talking to Leo, who admitted his nervousness as it was his first mission. Sabina asked him a direct question. Could he kill a man? Leo hesitated, but Sabina encouraged him, saying there was no need to doubt himself, and that she knew more than anyone how hard his training had been, reminding him that she was the one who trained him. Moved by her words, Leo addressed her as Master. The train announced its arrival in 20 minutes, so Sabina decided that during the mission, they would address each other as Master and Student. She then announced she would jump from the train to go ahead and scout the situation unnoticed. Rohan protested the danger of jumping from a moving train, but Sabina reassured him that he would not be held accountable for anything, because her nephews would be watching him from a distance. Karen commented with admiration on her audacity, and Sabina jumped from the train, leaving Rohan and Leo in a state of shock, wondering about the eccentricities of the Liston family. Upon their arrival at the barony of Belos, they were greeted by Rohan's father, the injured Baron Belos, who apologized for receiving them while seated due to his poor health. Karen replied politely, asking him not to worry about it, and asked about his injuries. Upon meeting the bedridden Baron Belos, the Baron thanked the boys for their concern and mentioned that he had met Karen and his father 10 years ago, commenting on how wonderfully he had grown, which must make his father proud. Karen, who was not comfortable with formalities, asked the Baron to speak simply with him, and the Baron agreed to call him Young Master Karen. The Baron showed keen insight, deducing that since Karen had been assigned his first mission, he must have reached the 4-star level in the martial arts at such a young age. The Baron expressed his confidence in the main house's judgment of the boy's abilities, but at the same time he felt concerned about sending 2 promising young men on such a dangerous mission. Karen reassured the Baron, saying he understood his concern, but failure in their missions would stain the honor of the Blue Wolves, and that they never consider failure. He then turned to Leo for confirmation, and Leo reluctantly agreed that they would definitely succeed. The Baron laughed and thanked them for their confidence. Karen noticed that the Baron needed rest and announced that they would be leaving. The Baron entrusted the matter to them and told them he had prepared a guide for them to follow. The boys set off with the guide through the snowy mountains. Karen mocked Leo, wondering if he was already tired, but Leo ignored him and expressed his distrust of the guide, pointing out that there was no guarantee he wasn't colluding with the bandits. Karen sarcastically congratulated him on finally being able to think, then calmly confirmed that Leo's suspicions were correct, and that the guide was most likely one of the bandits. Leo was shocked and asked how he knew. Karen explained that he had overheard Baron Rohan's conversation at the station. In a flashback, Rohan's aide asked how they would locate the bandits' hideout, and Rohan replied that they would have to use a traitor within the domain. When Leo asked him why he hadn't told him earlier, Karen replied that he had been tense all day. Karen then analyzed the situation, pointing out Rohan's cunning in deliberately using the traitor against them, and explained to Leo that their current role was to be bait, as their kidnapping as young nobles would fetch a high ransom. Karen explained to Leo that the fact the traitor remained unpunished and alive until now was proof of this, which meant they had reached the point of desperation. The guide, Sven led them into an ambush set by the bandit leader, who rewarded him with an extra sum because the targets were young nobles. One of the bandits noted that the two young men didn't look like they would follow them obediently. Karen and Leo stood ready to fight, and Karen declared with intense anger that he would not forgive them for spreading drugs in his father's land. Back at the Baron's residence, Rohan asked his father if he was okay. His father reassured him of his health. Rohan offered his father a cup of water, and the concerned Rohan asked his father if the two young men would be all right. The Baron father replied that Blue Sea Castle sending the boys without sufficient information was proof enough of their confidence in their abilities. He then added that Karen reminded him of Duke Halo's younger days, not just in appearance but in his confident demeanor and his calm and dignified attitude. At the Baron's residence, Baron Belos expressed his confidence to his son, saying it was right to place expectations on the two boys. Meanwhile, in the snowy mountains, Karen was engaged in a fierce battle, skillfully and supernaturally beheading bandits. Leo watched the scene in horrified silence, thinking to himself that Karen was a true monster. The bandit deputy leader apprehensively told the leader that they were not ordinary people and that they should withdraw to inform the main force. This angered the bandit leader, who refused to be defeated by a green boy and rushed towards Karen with a red aura. But Karen met him coolly, describing his war cry as annoying, and then split him in half with a single blow. Leo was stunned, while Karen casually commented that he had accidentally used a powerful technique. Karen complained that the leader had stained his clothes. One of the surviving bandits, named Orha, was terrified by Karen's power and the aura of his sword that almost overwhelmed him, so he surrendered immediately. With a sly smile, Karen asked Orha if he had a rope and ordered him to bring it. To Leo's astonishment, Karen had Orha tie him and Leo up, and arm him with their swords as well. Leo asked why they were going to such lengths, and Karen explained that to be effective bait and uncover the bandits' base, their capture had to be convincing, as it was illogical for two nobles to be captured by a single unarmed man. As they walked, Karen began to interrogate their prisoner, Orha. The terrified Orha confessed that they were indeed deserters from the kingdom of Caius in the southern war zone. Karen asked him about their number in the fortress. Orha informed him that there were 130 of them, including 2 mages and their guard knights. Orha realized at that moment the magnitude of his mistake, and that the ones he had captured were not just ordinary nobles, but heirs to the great Liston family. Karen found Orha's story that their leader had promised them easy money to be illogical. He wondered why an elite like mages would be with a simple infantry captain, and why they would choose the poor barony of Belos to carry out robberies. Karen concluded that the story made no sense, and decided they had to see the truth with their own eyes. Upon reaching the bandits' hideout, they were greeted with surprise by other guards who wondered why Orha had brought hostages with him. At the entrance of the bandits' hideout, the guards questioned Orha about why he returned alone and with weapons. Orha claimed he took the weapons from the young masters as his loot, and that his other comrades were chasing the escapees. The guards mocked him but opened the gate. Inside, Karen commented to himself that these deserters seemed lax, but he felt a strange power that had been unsettling him the whole way, and his sword guillotine began to react to it. He soon discovered the source of his unease: bird carcasses hanging as sacrifices, and a large black magic circle on the ground. Karen immediately ordered Orha to untie him and give him his sword, then told the astonished Leo to draw his sword Sylphid, warning him that he would need it soon. At that moment, the magic circle was activated and armed skeletons began to rise from the ground, causing Orha to panic. The bandit leader appeared, and mockingly welcomed the hostages for entering his mountain stronghold. Karen searched for the black mage with his eyes but couldn't find him, concluding he was hiding somewhere. Quickly he grabbed Orha as a hostage, putting the sword to his neck and threatening to kill him if the bandits attacked. Leo was shocked by this act, which he considered a breach of noble honor. The bandit leader mocked Karen, asking if nobles weren't supposed to value honor above all else. Karen retorted, wondering why he shouldn't be allowed to do so. The leader found Karen interesting but declared that the hostage was worthless, and that Orha was completely useless, giving Karen permission to do as he pleased with him. The leader pushed Orha towards Karen. As Leo realized they were trapped, he asked Karen for his plan. Karen replied confidently that the plan was simple. They just had to eliminate the leader. The leader noticed Karen's blue mana aura and looked worried. Karen told Leo that he would take care of the leader and that Leo had to deal with the skeletons. Before Leo could process what that meant, Karen charged powerfully towards the leader, leaving Leo alone to face the army of skeletons that had fully risen. Panic struck Leo as he was surrounded by the skeletal soldiers, wondering how he was supposed to deal with all of them on his own. As the skeletons advanced to attack him, Karen had already reached the leader and unleashed a powerful strike, shouting, "Third form of the Sea Wolf Sword." Karen directed his sword's energy towards the leader. After Karen's strike hit the leader and severed his hand, The latter fell in pain and called Karen a damned brat. Karen mocked him, saying that if he was going to attack, he should have done it sooner. The leader wondered why Blue Sea Castle was interfering in their affairs, and Karen explained that this barony was next to his father's lands, and told him he didn't intend to kill him but would take him to the castle. Meanwhile, Leo was fighting the skeletons with surprisingly good performance. From a distance, Karen was watching him and encouraging him to keep fighting with pure strength as the art of the sea wolf sword teaches them. Karen returned to the wounded leader, Michael Knox, and asked for his name again to be sure. After he answered, Karen mercilessly stabbed him in the leg to force him into submission. With a chilling smile, he ordered him to command his men to drop their weapons, which the leader did in agony. The defeated Michael lamented his defeat at the hands of two brats, but he warned Karen that when they arrive, not even someone from the Liston family would be able to handle them. Karen correctly guessed that the leader was pinning his hopes on the black mages. Karen mocked the leader's hopes, wondering if he really thought the Liston family would send just 2 children alone. He pointed out that the magic circle had disappeared, explaining that it was natural for them to have a guardian. At that moment, a massive explosion roared in the distance. Karen commented that because they wasted time with the leader, they couldn't capture the black mage alive. Sabina suddenly appeared, holding the severed head of the black mage. Leo was disgusted by the sight, while Sabina officially declared the mission a failure because they let the most important clue slip away, the living mage. Karen brazenly asked his aunt if she was at least impressed with his methods. Sabina responded by beating the defeated leader until he lost consciousness. Then she scolded Karen for his recklessness and for rushing into enemy territory without thinking, saying he was just like her older brother, Hello, but she admitted she would give him extra points for this audacity befitting a member of the Liston family, while points would be deducted for resorting to taking a hostage. When she asked him why, Karen explained that he wanted to exploit their weakness, as they would never expect a noble to take a hostage. Sabina found this reasoning amusing and laughed, calling him a crazy boy the likes of whom she'd never met, while the captured leader thought to himself, what a bunch of crazy bastards. Sabina announced that they would now return to Baron Belos's castle because there would be a lot of questions. As they were leaving the battlefield, the captured villagers were released from their cages and touching family reunions began. After the battle, as families reunited with their freed loved ones, Karen noticed the bandit Orha standing aside, feeling guilty. Karen mockingly asked him if he was feeling a prick of conscience. Karen told Orha it was too early for that. For all he knew, he could end up locked in the barony's dungeon like his comrades. He then told him he would be taken to Blue Sea Castle with his captain instead of being imprisoned in the barony. Leo asked how safe it was to leave Orha untied. Karen explained they needed him to help carry their wounded captain, but he warned Leo not to let his guard down. At that moment, one of the rescued villagers approached them and spoke in Orha's defense, wondering if he would be punished too. The villager explained that Orha had sincerely cared for the prisoners, secretly bringing medicine to the sick and giving his own food to the hungry, and pleaded with them to show him mercy. Sabina turned to Karen for his opinion. Karen looked at the shocked Orha, then decided they would consider showing him leniency, justifying it by the fact that he had guided them to the hideout. Gratitude overwhelmed Orha, and he swore his complete loyalty to Karen until death. Leo interrupted the scene, calling Karen to see something important. Leo led him to a barrel containing a huge, glowing magic stone, while the villagers celebrated and hurled insults at the captured bandits. Leo was sure the young master would prepare a feast for them upon their return. Karen was deep in thought. He finally realized the real reason for the large group of bandits in this poor and remote area, a magic stone mine that the Baron's family themselves didn't know existed. Leo noticed the scheming look on his cousin's face and asked him what plot he was hatching now. Baron Rohan and his father arrived to greet the rescuers. Rohan ordered the prisoners to be thrown in the dungeon, asking Sabina to hand over the bandit leader. But Sabina, claiming she was just a guardian, directed him to her students, Karen and Leo. Rohan invited everyone to a modest banquet, but Karen declined, saying they had to leave for Blue Sea Castle immediately. At that point, Rohan brought up the matter of the mission fee, admitting that his barony lacked the resources to pay it in full and requested a deferral of payment. Karen's expression changed to a cunning look, and he began to deliberately insult the barony, describing it as a remote area among remote areas, which provoked Rohan. Karen then announced that the bandits were after something else entirely. Karen revealed the magic stone to the astonished Rohan, who admitted he had no idea there was a mine on his lands. With all the cards in his hand, Karen announced that he too had a proposal to make. Karen presented his proposal to Baron Rohan, that Blue Sea Castle would jointly develop the magic stone mine with the barony of Belos, on the condition that the castle provide the initial capital and security forces. Rohan was internally shocked, wondering if this boy truly realized the magnitude of the words he was speaking. But he quickly realized that having the powerful Liston family as a partner in his barony's mine would in itself be a huge gain. Rohan concluded that Karen had calculated all these things, and he marveled at a child's audacity to conduct negotiations of this importance. Karen added that this arrangement could allow for the establishment of a Liston Knights garrison in the barony, which would solve the defense problem and achieve economic growth at the same time. When Rohan asked him about the share percentage he had in mind, Karen cleverly dodged, saying it was unreasonable for a child like him to discuss the fine details of such a project, and that this was a matter for Rohan to discuss with his father. Rohan agreed to consult his father and contact them soon. Later, Karen asked Lady Sabina why she expected things to get complicated at the bandits' hideout. Sabina explained that the reason was the black mage she dealt with, revealing he wasn't just any ordinary mage, but Tad Delahada, a second-degree wanted criminal in the Empire and a sixth circle mage. Sabina scolded the boys for getting preoccupied with the small fish, the bandits, and ignoring the more important target. Sabina continued her lesson, explaining that true strength only grows by facing strong opponents, and that if they had defeated the black mage themselves, they wouldn't have wasted their time with rabble. For this reason, she considered the mission a failure, a judgment Karen accepted respectfully. She then turned to Leo, who felt he had been ignored, and unexpectedly praised him, saying his performance was much better than she had expected, especially since it was his first time facing the undead. She encouraged him to be more confident in himself. At Blue Sea Castle, Hello returned from the capital. His retinue greeted him and informed him of the knight's return from the west, and that Karen, Leo, and Sabina were on their way back from their mission. Suddenly, a messenger arrived with an urgent message from the imperial palace. Hello opened the letter and was shocked by its contents, as the emperor had mentioned nothing of the sort before he left the capital. His Majesty the Emperor had personally invited his grandson, Karen, to the capital. On the returning train, Orha was carrying his captive captain, Michael. Michael tried to persuade Orha to escape together, taking advantage of what he considered a security lapse. But Orha angrily struck him and refused, reminding him that he was the one who called him useless and disposable. Upon their return to Blue Sea Castle, they were greeted by family members. Bali sarcastically commented that Karen's surroundings were still as chaotic as ever, to which Karen retorted sharply, threatening him. Bali warmly welcomed his son, while Sabina spoke with him, concluding that her brother, Hello, had likely summoned him, because of the trouble Karen had caused in the barony of Belos. Meanwhile, Bali was congratulating his nephew Leo on his great achievement, noting that the news had preceded him. Leo felt happy, believing his father and grandfather would be proud of him. Then Karen announced he was tired and would go up to rest. The conversation took a serious turn, as Sabina asked Bali if he knew anything about the unusual political situation in the empire. Bali explained that the other great powers, except for their family, were rapidly uniting, centered around the Salmon Duchy and the Diaz Marquisate. Sabina added that their father, Hello, had planned to meet with several families in the capital to assess the situation, but he cancelled everything because his talks with the emperor did not yield a satisfactory result. Bali explained that these two families were the ones who contributed to the overthrow of the previous emperor and the installation of the current one, and that they now control the system. Sabina lamented that her brother, Hello, had decided to withdraw from central power for the future of the empire, only to be met with this treatment now. The two concluded that the era of peace was nearing its end, and that it was time for their family to make a move. Sabina saw a positive side to the situation, pointing out that what Karen had done might be the most useful thing for them at the moment, as it gives them a justified reason to expand their influence by sending troops to the lands of other families. She described Karen as an interesting boy because he did something beneficial for the family at the perfect time. Bali told his aunt that she praises him too much, to which she replied that she wasn't really praising him. Later, Sir Xerus greeted them, congratulating them on their achievements in subduing the fugitive bandits. He announced that he would immediately begin interrogating the bandit leader whom Orha was carrying, vowing to extract every piece of information from him. When he asked about Orha's identity, Karen explained that for the time being, he was also considered a bandit, but since he had been an informant, he should be treated gently and then released, announcing that he planned to make him his personal servant, which Xerus agreed to. When the boys tried to go rest, Xerus stopped them, reminding them that their mission was not yet complete. Karen asked Xerus when he arrived, and he replied that he had arrived not long ago, and that they must write a report. When Karen asked if they had to write separate reports, Xerus allowed them to write it together. Karen immediately tried to palm the task off on Leo, arguing that he had done all the hard work. He then resorted to persuasion, pointing out that their uncle Tiles would read the report, and that this was Leo's chance to score points for himself by focusing on his achievements in the report, which convinced Leo. After their return, Sir Xerus ordered the prisoners to be locked up, while Sabina threw him the head of the wanted criminal, saying the boy's reports would be sufficient. As Karen wished Leo good luck with writing the report, he announced that he was going to the Mana training room to use the 4th form he had recently reached, leaving Xerus astonished at his unyielding passion. Meanwhile, Hello held an emergency family council meeting. He explained that the reason for the meeting was information obtained during the suppression of demons that had recently appeared around the castle. He asked Heinrich to summon the Knight Commander. Xerus was summoned and presented him with a piece of demon skin. Hello told them that this piece was collected from the western Celestial Dome region. Hello noted that the dark mana latent in the skin was not ordinary, and realized with a shock that it belonged to the fallen emperor. Hello proposed 2 possibilities. Either it was merely his will lingering in the world, or the fallen emperor was still alive. Hello deduced that this matter was connected to the ongoing events in the empire, then revealed another development. News of the events in the barony of Belos had reached the emperor's ears, who had extended a personal invitation for Karen to come to the capital. Hello announced his plan to send Leo and the Seawolf Knights to accompany Karen, but he stressed that he would ask for Karen's opinion first and would not force him to go as he was still a child. Most importantly, Hello wanted to understand what Karen was thinking when he made that deal with Baron Belos, so he ordered Xerus to bring him. Xerus found Karen meditating in the training room. Karen asked Xerus when he had arrived, and he replied that he had arrived not long ago. Karen told him that besides the immediate family, Sir Xerus was the only one allowed to enter, but he didn't remember Xerus ever entering the training room before, which meant it must be urgent. Xerus informed him of his summons to the family council to discuss an impending trip to the capital. Xerus replied that the head of the family had summoned Lord Karen to the family council, and that he would hear the details directly from him. Upon Karen's arrival at the council, Hello told Karen that he had just learned of his first mission's successful conclusion, to which the other confirmed. Hello told him that he immediately questioned him about why he acted independently, and overstepped his authority in negotiating with the House of Belos, wondering if he had considered that his arrogant behavior might be a great insult to them. Karen realized this was an interrogation, not praise, but he denied the charge, explaining that he had only made a single proposal to the young Baron Belos, and that the latter had accepted the offer of his own free will. In the council hall, Karen defended his actions before his grandfather, explaining that he had judged there was something more important than noble etiquette. When Hello asked him what could be more important than courtesy, Karen replied that it was the honor of the family. This response deeply impressed Hello, who thought to himself that Karen could have boasted about the gains from the deal and taken credit for himself, but instead he put the family's interest first, describing this act as splendid conduct. Based on this, Hello announced his decision. He acknowledged that the deal Karen had brought would greatly benefit the family, and he tasked his son Bali with handling the formal negotiations. Bali agreed to leave for the barony of Belos at dawn the next day, to which Hello commented that a father bringing glory through his son's merits was not a bad thing. Hello then moved on to the next topic, the Emperor's letter, and formally informed Karen that His Majesty had summoned him, as news of him had reached the capital. Karen deduced that, according to Xerus, the Emperor's letter had already arrived before Hello's return to Blue Sea Castle, and then wondered to himself if the Emperor's intelligence network really had such capability. Karen thought about it, concluding that the influential nobles controlling the puppet emperor were the ones behind this swift invitation, not the emperor himself. Hello offered Karen the option not to go. Hello thought about Karen, believing he must have already realized what going to the capital at this time meant. Hello began to think about the strategic implications of accepting or refusing. Bali knew that Hello should not have given the choice to Karen, but Karen interrupted them, declaring that since the emperor was the one who summoned him, it was his duty to go, adding that this would be an opportunity to see his maternal grandfather again. When Karen asked if he would go alone, Hello confirmed that Leo would accompany him, in addition to Hans's squad as guards. Karen questioned the need for separate guards with his grandfather present, so Hello shouted jokingly that the guards were not to protect him, but to control the trouble he might cause. And Hello announced that the departure time would be in 3 days. In a later scene, Bali concluded his negotiations with Baron Rohan. It was agreed to divide the mine's shares with 80% for the Liston family and 20% for the Belos family. But Bali was puzzled by an additional condition he found hard to understand, allocating 5% of Belos's share, a quarter of their share, directly to Karen and Leo, considering this amount excessive for a mere commission. He asked Rohan, a distinguished graduate of the Imperial Academy, the reason for this decision. Rohan frankly explained that this condition was an investment, to win the favor of the 2 young wolves who would one day lead Blue Sea Castle. Bali saw Rohan as arrogant for thinking he had grasped the talents of these children and considered it extremely rude. Bali and Rohan exchanged some sharp words, with Bali praising his audacity. Finally, the boys were summoned, and they gratefully accepted the offer, and Rohan expressed his family's honor in this partnership. As they were leaving, Leo had a question for Karen. After sealing the deal with the barony of Belos, Leo asked Karen how they would divide their 5% share. Karen coolly replied that naturally, he would get 9/10, while Leo would get 1/10. Leo was shocked by this proposal, but Karen confronted him with a threat, prompting the terrified Leo to agree immediately. Bali and his aide were watching the scene, and the aide commented that the two boys, who used to fight fiercely in their childhood,